First of all, thank you for coming. Natalie Flores is our guest today,
Thank
and I
you.
want
Thank
to
you so much.
start this off how I know you because that ties right away
Yeah.
to your big, I almost said company. It's not a company. What do you,
Nonprofit?
your big nonprofit? So in the pandemic, I think I had the feeling that a lot of people had of helplessness.
Mhm.
And I almost started nursing school during the pandemic because I felt like I want to do something that makes more sense for humankind and for I need to help because I think a lot of people felt very helpless just sitting at home, seeing all this tragedy and just like, I can't do anything. Like, what am I going to do? And then my friend Sandra, um, was she found you first and she was telling me about it and she's like, I'm going to this I'm going volunteering every Sunday. They do food contributions. They get food from like Trader Joe's and Whole Foods and farmers markets and like all the stuff that they don't sell anymore, and then they put them in beautiful bags and they put a flower in the bag, even they look so cute, and they contribute them and they give them to the people in the community. And it's like, that's so awesome. I was always so mad about all the food waste we have, and this is perfect. And it was on a Sunday, and me as a real estate agent, normally I have never time on a Sunday because I always do open houses, but we didn't do open houses during the pandemic because we weren't allowed. And no joke, this was my favorite day of the week. Every
Aw.
week, where it was like, we were for a while this tight community of people who showed up every Sunday. And it was really nice because that's not a typical thing in LA that the same people show up to something. Like if it's a dance class, a
True.
yoga class, or whatever, you have different people every week.
Mhm.
And I don't know if that's a generation thing or if that's an LA thing, but everybody is just like all over the place. But during that time, it was the pandemic, so nobody really had that many other things to do. So it was like the same group of people who showed up every Sunday, and we had our system. Like I was always on bread, and
You were on
somebody
bread
was
duty?
always like the typical, like always the oranges, and always like, and Natalie was the sunshine who created all these
Aw.
things. And I'm wearing my T-shirt today, Nourish LA.
Yep.
So that's what I'm talking about. Nourish LA is this nonprofit that did these amazing things, and I think it started in the pandemic,
Yep.
right? I
Yep.
think I talked enough now. I'm just already it's like, and now it's your turn. Um, Before we get into what Nourish LA is, though, let's pedal back a little bit and see who you are. We always like to see the person first a little bit and the story of the woman we talk to before we get to the thing
Yeah.
they do right now. So we talked earlier a little bit about your childhood. You're from Arizona, and you said you got into the dirt as a child. Much. So how was your childhood?
Oh
Where are
my
you
goodness.
from?
I'm originally from Chandler, Arizona, and I really loved my childhood. I was really blessed to have a real childhood where we rode our bicycles, where we played until the street lights came on and your mom's shouting at you from the window,
Dinner.
Natalie, like, yeah, come eat dinner. Like, you got to eat, child. You know, and I loved my childhood. I was so fortunate that my neighborhood was really diverse. We had all different kinds of neighbors. We were the big Latin family that had mariachis and piñatas and uncle drinking too much tequila and, like all the things. So I really, really am very fortunate to have had a really good childhood and to grow up in a place that fostered a lot of diversity and had all different kinds of neighbors. I got to go to church with all different kinds of neighbors and explore different religions. And my parents gave me a lot of freedom to explore, which I was really grateful for because I really needed that. They weren't overly strict. They really let me explore and go to different places, which was really awesome. I think here in Los Angeles, you're lucky to be able to have that or have communities where your kids can run around and,
That's so true.
yeah,
To
exactly.
have
Just
freedom as a kid.
ride a bike and get dirty and play in the mud
Yeah.
and play in the elements. And
Mhm.
So I just feel really blessed to have had that. And I'm still friends with some of my childhood friends. They live all over the world and we message each other, and I've gone to visit them in certain parts of the country. And it's just really fun. We were the family with the pool. Yeah,
Oh.
In Arizona,
in
that's
Arizona,
important. Yeah.
it gets
nice.
hot. If you know anything about Arizona, you know that it's
Yeah.
hot.
Oh, yes.
So it was like right after school, strip off your clothes, put your swimsuits on in the pool. And my
Yeah.
parents would come home and find me swimming every day in the
And your
summer.
parents had a pretty open door policy
Oh,
with
yeah,
like
yeah.
friends and
Oh, yeah.
everybody
There was always
at your
people
house.
over at my house for sure. They
Right.
always had friends over at their house. So we were a
Yeah.
very social family. We'd make carne asada. But they also taught me the value of like hard work. They both worked their butts off. They took every bit of overtime to afford piano lessons for me and different classes. My parents are both immigrants from Mexico. So they really hustled. They worked super hard. Their work ethic was incredible. I remember my mother buying me, hundreds of dollars worth of books when the book fair came in, because she knew that there was stuff that she couldn't teach me, but those books could. So that's like one of the probably most important things that my parents did for me was buy me books. So I had an incredible library. When I was bored, I would just flip open these books and go to these other worlds, learn about geography, the presidents, astrology, astronomy, all sorts of things. But that was my mother's instinct, is saying, hey, like, I don't know if I can teach my kid all these things, but I could definitely buy her books.
Give her a tool.
Exactly. So I'm really grateful. And that's something that I've implemented in my own home now. With my own children, is like, I'll never say no if they want a book. You can have all the books in the world. Books are great.
Yeah.
They're great tools.
Yeah.
So I'm really grateful for that. And, I guess to be quite honest, like up until I was 10 or 11, my childhood was amazing. And then my parents had a really, really tragic divorce. It was really tumultuous and heartbreaking. And I went from feeling like I had everything to all of a sudden, like everything was just gone, or it was slowly being ripped away, this like illusion of a perfect family, And I didn't understand. Now I do, because I'm an adult, but I didn't really understand, how does this happen, and a lot of the trauma that we don't heal from, and our lack of communication, and all these different things that add up to broken relationships, right? And at that age, I was angry. I was angry at my mom. I was angry at my dad. I was a young, rebellious person because I didn't know where to go. I didn't know who to turn to. I didn't have any tools,
Oh,
you
and
know?
11, you said?
Yeah, I was
That's
11
Formative.
and about to
That's a
going through
difficult
puberty. It was
age.
so hard. And what ended up happening is my father fought for custody over me, and then my father raised me through puberty, and that was its own thing in itself. Him not understanding about
Right.
my menstruation, like getting in fights with my father when I didn't want to go out or spend time with him because I'm bleeding and in
Right.
pain. And, him calling me selfish and like all these different things. I remember going to a Christian church and getting the church involved to like explain to him, like, I'm not feeling good and it's not personal. It's like, I really don't feel good,
Yeah.
and like,
having cramps.
yeah,
I'm in pain.
but he didn't, it literally, even though his mom was a midwife, he had no idea about
Yeah.
women's bodies at all. He didn't understand the chemicals. He didn't understand the physical manifestations of a period. It was a nightmare.
It was not talked about, too, at that time.
In Latin culture, it's so weird. You're either too fat or you're too skinny. You're never like look healthy and athletic and like healthy. It's like it's either one or the other. You know what I mean? And there's like jokes about it because my mom would call my dad viejo, which means old.
Yeah.
And my mom. And no, my dad would call my mom gorda, which means fat. So even that's a term of endearment.
It is. Yeah.
And that's how people talk to each other.
Yeah.
In Latin culture. And it makes no sense because it breeds all these other self-esteem issues.
Insecurities.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So I was like taught, okay, my body's never going to be good enough. I'm not healthy looking. I'm either too skinny, I'm too fat. And it's a very weird thing. And then when it comes to menstruation, my mom didn't sit with me. You know what I mean? She depended on sex ed to teach me about my body. I remember being like, this is so weird.
Did you have any sisters to
No,
go
my
through
sister,
this?
so I have a brother and sister, but they were already much older. So they didn't live with me. So I was like an only child stuck in this weird.
Instability.
Yes, exactly. And like just trying to lean on friends or friends' parents or whoever I could find to talk about these things. But most of the time, I would just keep it inside myself and just be ashamed of my body.
Right.
It was awful. So I developed this really weird body complex from a really young age, you know, and like I looked very old when I was really young. When I was like 13, I'd have like full grown men trying to hit on me because I looked like I was a 20-year-old. It was so bizarre. You know what I mean? And I sought out that attention too because I was like, oh, look what I could do. You know, I was like, this is really interesting. It's like a messed up social experiment. But then, you know, so I was taught all these weird behaviors and habits because it was just frankly out of ignorance. You
Of
know,
course, at 13 years old, you have
it
no
was
idea. You
totally
just do what
exactly.
gives you
Yeah.
whatever
Oh, I was
comfort.
like, well, you're not making me feel good, and these guys are making me feel great, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, I went through a spiral of that world. I got my first job at 14. I remember my dad, when my dad had to pay all the bills, he was like, Natalie, I need to borrow money for the lights. And I feeling like, well, that's a first. That's really interesting. I'm 14 years old and my dad's borrowing money from me to pay the lights. Like, damn, like this is
a real thing.
getting really interesting, you know?
Yeah.
And eventually my dad kind of spiraled out of control. He was brokenhearted because of the divorce with my mom. And he blamed her for all our problems or whatever. And then he got into gambling and alcohol. And I remember one day the officer from my high school called me and is like, your father has crashed his Camaro into a median and hit a saguaro cactus. And in the state of Arizona, it's illegal to remove the cactus
Oh no.
if you bump him. So he's like, can you come pick up your dad from the sheriff's office? I said, hell no. I said, he can take a taxi. Like, he should be picking me up from jail.
Yeah.
I'm like 15 at this age,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
I'm 15 and the cop that works at my school, my high
Yes.
school, is calling me to pick up my dad.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't. I'm going back to bed. He can walk. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, this is ridiculous. And at that moment, that single moment, I realized I'm on my own.
Where was your mom?
She got brainwashed by some lover she had met by visiting somebody, visiting my brother in jail who was like wrongfully incarcerated because he's schizophrenic. And she got manipulated by this guy she met while visiting my brother in jail and had like a second life. It was
She
crazy.
had a second
Yeah,
life?
she had like a whole second life. She like,
While she was still married to your dad?
yes. Yeah, she had a whole second
So
life.
that's
and then
why they divorced.
exactly. And then she tried to loop me into that world. And I was like, oh my God. And I have like Barbie entries in my little Barbie journal being like, I can't, like, I know my life is about to change essentially, you know? But I understood now as I'm older and I understood like the complications of life. And
Yeah.
my father was like I guess he had like a gambling issue for a long time. And she never told us or revealed that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was just like, when you're in it, you only see it from the perspective of your lens.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you're young.
Well, that's the
Like,
thing, you know,
And
like,
that's all you should do.
well, now as an adult though, I found a lot of forgiveness and peace in my relationship with both my father and my mother. My mother is like my biggest supporter in Nourish LA and in my life, you know, but it also took her coming full circle too and realizing that she was also a victim of like deep manipulation, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and she was also seeking something that she wasn't getting from my father. So
Right.
like when you're little though, you just don't understand.
No.
You don't
No.
understand those things, you know? So it was actually what was really interesting is I remember my father had seen how angry I had started becoming and was like, Natalie, you have to forgive your mother. You have to forgive your mother. That's your mother. And I just remember thinking like, you asshole, like you forgive my mother. You know what I mean? Like, stop
Oh,
telling me what to
mhm.
do. Those
Yeah.
are wise words, but also
Mhm.
like take your own fucking advice.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I just remember thinking like, for how wise you sound right now, you also sound like such a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's the pot calling the kettle
exactly.
black.
And I love that he said that, but I also hate that he didn't take his own advice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
in that sense, I'm a little resentful because like he went down a totally negative trajectory where my mom picked herself up and said, oh, like, this isn't the path.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? He
Mm-hmm.
just continued on this path of like, it's all your fault and never took any responsibility.
Right.
And
You
that's all
know?
you saw. I mean, how are you supposed to forgive anybody when that's all
I realized
like,
very young I had to get out. I had to get
yeah.
out. I was like, if I let these people control my life and control, like, first of all, they can't control their own lives. They can't control their own emotions. My dad was gambling, you know, he was like not home.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom was living another life and I was already working. So at that point I said, okay, I'm going to just put my head, I'm just going to grind, you know, I'm just going to get out of school. I need to figure out what I'm doing. I got into art. I started painting. I started exploring with oils. I remember as a young kid, I loved oils, like oil pastels, oil colors. I loved Van Gogh. I remember studying Van Gogh when I was in 1st and 2nd grade and doing Starry Night and the sunflowers. And I just started getting into oil painting. And that for me was such a positive outlet because I would come home and I would just paint. I would just make stuff. And
Did you have a dream at that time to what you wanted to be,
no,
where you
I
wanted to
wanted to be
be?
an artist. I said, I'm going to be an artist. I finally found some like great friends in high school. There is a really cool camp from my high school that's called Aztec Town. We were the Corona del Sol Aztecs. And one of the things that you're able to do is if you have like over a 2.8 GPA, you can apply to go to Aztec Town. And basically you spend a week on native land in different groups with strangers, essentially, kind of just peeling back the layers, doing some like deep work, things that people do now with like life coaches,
Yeah.
you know,
It's like
but
an
you
immersive
exactly
camp.
for young people. So I was able to do that and I really found some great people and I was able to just peel back all the layers and all the crap, you know, from like a really good childhood and then a troubled childhood and going down these weird dark paths to finally being like, none of this shit is like even mine. Like I don't need to take any of this. And finding forgiveness for myself and like finding purpose and deep joy and being like, no, like I refuse to like let any of this shit like become me. Cause it's
How
not,
old were you when
I
that
was
happened?
like 16 or 17. I was
Yeah.
16.
So young.
I was 16 years old.
That is so insightful for a 16-year-old.
Yeah. I was like, I can't.
Yeah.
I can't. And I know that I'm here for like a purpose. Like it can't just be this like stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like my mom and dad and all these different things. It's not me. You know, this is just part of my journey. And I realized that and I met some great people. Some of my dearest friends. We did a lot of mushrooms. We went into the desert. We helped each other just peel back the layers of the crap and the crud that you know, that man comes into when you're just first getting through life, right? But I remember going to the deserts, going to lots of different artist compounds and going downtown and seeing all these artists come together. We had this thing in Phoenix called First Fridays, and all these artists would show their artwork from the trunk of their cars. They would open their homes. You'd see drawings and paintings on their roof, all these different kinds of artists with all different mediums. So going there and just feeling so inspired, like, wow, everybody has a different craft. I have my own craft too. And then coming out on First Fridays, trying to sell my own artwork and trying to meet people and network and being like, this is so cool. I'm part of something bigger. And going to all kinds of different places across the desert and seeing art in all its forms, you know? But yeah, it was a hell of a ride. It was a hell of a ride.
It sounds like it. It started so beautiful.
It was
like everything.
I
had a
know.
real
about your
childhood. Yeah.
sounded so magical. And I'm like, oh my God. And then all of a sudden, whoop,
pretty much.
takes
That's how it
this
felt.
turn.
That's how it felt. I remember like even as when I knew things were getting changing when my mom was like, oh, we're going to a tea party. I was like, what tea party? She's like, dress up. I was like, okay. Dressed up. All of a sudden I'm at some weirdo's house and like I'm talking to this weirdo's daughter and he's like, oh, she's telling me all these things about these two people and I'm like, what is happening? Like, where's this tea party? Like, why am I dressed up? I feel foolish, you know, and I'm like 10 years old and I'm expecting a tea party.
Yeah.
Or like 9, you know, or something. And I'm like, I'm talking to this guy's daughter and she's like, I don't know what's going on. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. We're like the same age. And there's just like nothing makes sense. And I remember thinking like, oh, this is this is some shady shit. We
Yeah.
shouldn't be here, and we're caught. We're two victims caught in this whirlwind.
Yeah.
Sounds like you were very wise for your age already.
Well,
Like with
that was
9 and
the
then like with 14 and 16 too. It sounds like you were ahead.
that was the benefit of like all the freedom I had too, is just like being able to observe humanity. Like I remember literally spending days climbing trees by myself and like sifting for gold in my soil and like sitting outside in a hammock while a thunderstorm is taking place. Like I remember being able to have lots of pensive time as a kid, and I'm so grateful because my parents gave me that space. They weren't like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
Pensive time is such a great phrase because nowadays kids don't have pensive time.
I know.
They don't have any time just to sit in their room and be bored.
I told
or
my
sit
daughter,
outside.
I go, Iris, I told her yesterday, I go, it's good to be bored. Look at
Yeah.
what you create when you're bored. She's made all this boxed Barbie. She created her own Barbie land out of cardboard boxes because she was bored. I was like, that's cool.
Yeah.
And
This is
that only
cool.
happens when they're bored.
Yeah,
I have the
exactly.
same discussion with my
Yeah.
10-year-old. Mom, I'm bored. And I'm like, I always like, that's great.
What a gift.
That's
Yeah.
great.
What a
You
gift.
just got to get through this little bit at
Yeah.
the beginning, and then I'm 100%
My daughter
sure.
said this to me last night. She was trying to avoid going to sleep.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
she was like,
I'm
Mom,
bored.
laying in her bed. She's like, Mom, I'm bored. And I was like, honey, enjoy being bored. When you're a grown up, you will just crave a moment to sit and be bored.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Enjoy it.
Yeah.
Get your art, get your pencils, coloring
Yes.
books, your cardboard, get it all
Yeah.
out.
Yeah,
Just
and that's
be with it.
the only where we always say, right? From boredom comes creativity,
Yes.
and only
Yeah.
from there. Like when you're busy, you're not being creative. You need
Yeah.
to lay there and just look at the stars
Yep.
and think, and then
Yep.
all of a sudden, like build a Barbie world. And yeah, it's the same too. All of a sudden, I don't hear anything from the bedroom, and I walk in there, and yeah, she's building stuff and she's doing things. And like that only
So
happens
great.
when you're bored.
Exactly. So
Like,
I had a lot of that time,
yeah.
and I remember it, and I remember just being like exploratory. So I think that's where like the ability to like understand situations really comes from, is just having that time
Yeah.
to just observe, So yeah, I guess so. I don't know if it's wisdom or just the fact that you're able to just kind of sit back and
Mm-hmm.
really take in the moment and understand what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, when you're going through it, it's really scary. I felt really scared. I was like, what is going to happen to my home? What's going to happen to my life? And am I going to be able to go to the same school? Like, I remember our cars getting worse. At one point, they were like really nice cars, and my dad wrecked a couple. And then all of a sudden, my dad had to get like a really crappy van. Like my friends were embarrassed to get rides from us, and I just remember being like, oh, our social economic status is declining.
Mm.
And just like really understanding how that made other people feel, made me feel bad because I didn't know it was like a thing,
Yeah.
I didn't understand.
No, at that age you don't. And
But
you
then
don't,
when
you
my friends
shouldn't.
didn't want to get in the car with us,
Yeah.
they were like,
Mhm.
no, we don't want to be seen in this car. I was like, oh,
Oh.
it's like that.
Shame.
Yeah,
Mhm.
That's a
exactly.
feeling.
What
Exactly.
did your parents do for?
They worked for a big company called Avnet Electronics. My dad was a manager, was like shipping and receiving manager, and my mom was she did the codes and like all the codes that are on tiny little microchips.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, with
Wow.
like a magnifying glass and
Uh-huh.
little needles and pins.
Wow.
Yeah, it
By
was
hand?
by
Oh,
hand.
wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
she would code all the microchips.
Wow.
I know, it was nuts.
So how did you go then from Arizona to LA life?
Well, remember, I wanted to be an artist, so my
Mhm.
friends and I were visiting this place called Arcosanti in the middle of the desert, and it's really cool. It's like an artist compound made by one of Frank Lloyd Wright's students named Paulo Solari, and he
Mhm.
built this ecotopia in the middle of Prescott, Arizona, and my friends and I were spending a lot of time there because one of their older sisters had spent time there and told us to go visit. So we went, met some really cool people, ate mushrooms, cried, saw the full moon rise, and just realized that I'm a miracle embodied. We're all miracles.
Mhm.
And actually, someone I met at that place was sitting next to me and he goes, "What do you do?" I go, "I'm an artist." I was 17. I go, "I'm an artist." He's like, "Oh yeah, what kind of art you do?" I was like, "Oh, oil, pastels. I did a lot of cubism and abstract art." And he's like, "Do you have any?" And I just so happened to be I had a trunk load full of my art because we had just come from First Fridays. So I showed him my artwork and he saw a painting and he loved it and he gave me $1,000 for it. And that was the most money I've ever received for any of my art.
Wow.
So he purchased one of my paintings and he still has it to this day. He's retired, lives out in the desert. He was a doctor in the military, but he bought a painting for $1,000 and I started bawling and I told him a little bit of my story and I was like, I need to get the hell out of Arizona. And I was like, now I can do that.
Yeah.
And my sister and my niece lived in Mar Vista. So every summer in my childhood, I would go visit them. So California was always like my second home, Los Angeles. I loved the hip hop and Venice Beach and the skater scene and the diversity and the smells and the grit. I just
Yeah.
loved it. So with that $1,000, I packed up all my shit in my little car and I drove to California.
And they have a First Friday in Venice.
They sure
Yeah.
do. And Nourish LA has been a part of it.
Yeah. I used to
That is
go there when I
awesome.
Yep.
just moved here 13 years ago.
Me
I
too.
always went to Albuquerque First
Yeah,
Friday.
exactly. It's
Yeah.
still pumping. It's
I
amazing.
We need
haven't
to go
been.
back.
Every
Bring it
community
full
needs a
circle.
First Fridays.
Yeah.
Meet the local artist.
Yeah.
So that's
Do
how
you
I
still
got
have your
here.
art there?
No, he still has my art, but then time went on and that's part of my story. I came here, my sister ended up letting me stay in her back house for a little while, and then I took classes at Santa Monica College, but I didn't know what I was doing. So when I applied, I didn't realize the out-of-state tuition. I got myself in a lot of debt. I was only 18 years old. I had no guidance,
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, I just gotta figure it out, and I did that. And I was like, I don't know if I could do this. And I couldn't afford my own place. And it was just complicated. I still hadn't met good friends in LA. I was going to the drum circles and drinking a lot and just still not on the right path, But I started working for this local coffee shop called Venice Grind, which was one of my first jobs. And then I worked at a juice bar on Venice Beach. And it was the Fruit Gallery. So it's the only healthy spot on the beach. So you can get coconuts and E3 Live. And that got me into the world of health and wellness because I was we'd had all these celebrities come and get goji berry shots and E3 Live and coconuts and smoothies. And it was just this little hole in the wall juice bar, but I got to meet a
So
lot of
cool.
really great people. And through my coffee shop job and my juice bar, I was able to save enough money to move to Venice, and get my first 10 by 10 room for $650, working 2 jobs. I slept in my car for 6 months. In between then, when my sister was like, I can't have you living with me. You're drinking and you're not coming home and I'm worried about you. And, she was like a mama bear and I get it. But coming from some hyper independence and people not watching me, then my sister being like, you have to come home. You have a curfew. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I've never had a curfew in my life.
Yeah.
Tell me what to do.
Yeah, exactly. So that didn't work out, but it's okay. But yeah, just trying to figure it out. But I worked at the coffee shop and then I was slanging a coffee cart at the farmer's market and I got introduced to this guy, Matt Von Diepen. He had just started his little company called Homegrown Gardens and he was selling little seedlings for $1 or 50 cents. He had a little table with a bunch of seedlings. I was like, what are you doing here? He's like, oh, I'm selling starts. This is my little company, And he's like, hey, come to a good karma garden party. And I was like, what's a good karma garden party? And he's like, oh, we rip out someone's lawn. You just show up at this address and we rip out someone's lawn and we plant vegetables. And I go, huh, I like that.
Yeah.
That's a totally different kind of art. That's anarchist, righteous stuff. I was like, I like that. So I didn't have a car. I sold my car because it was giving me a lot of problems. And then I just rode a bike everywhere. But I rode my bike to the address he had sent me and ripped out someone's front lawn and met some of my best friends. I met my best friends and we're all still growing and everybody went into the gardening world. So I realized that my new medium was the earth. And through that, I was able to heal. I was able to meet my closest friends. I was able to really find my path and understand what I was really good at. And the gardening world just opened up all the worlds for me. It really it helped me heal, first of all, like the deep stuff that I needed to go through. I was pulling weeds. I was like, oh, this is that childhood shit. This is those really negative thoughts about my body. That's what it was like, literally weeding the earth. I was weeding bad ideas and bad thoughts out of my head. And I was like, this is really cool. And you're like growing sustenance and food and community. And I was meeting people from all walks of life, young and old, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, German, people from all over the world. And it was opening up my circle in such a good way, you know? And it had invited a community into my life that I was deeply needing, people to break bread with, to make meals with, have potlucks, share music and poetry and the written word, and to help each other and fall back on each other when we're in times of need. And I realized like everybody actually needs that.
Yeah.
But I really needed that. And that really helped channel my superpowers and my strengths.
Yeah, we know more and more these days that the community connection or the friendships we have is really the most important thing for a happy life.
Yep.
And it's like, it's proven over and over in your own life when you look back at the happy moments and stuff. It's the people you're with.
Yep.
Like I always said that when I was younger, like every job I had, like if it was a coffee bar, if it was like an H&M store, whatever, it really didn't matter what I was doing. It just mattered who I was doing it with.
Yep.
Like I loved my colleagues at H&M.
Yep.
And I was just folding T-shirts. I
Yep.
mean, it was like whatever, but
Yeah, it was
I
a family.
loved doing it with these people.
Yep.
So it's so important. So that you found this community was probably life-saving
It
for
was
you.
literally life-saving. It was life-altering.
Yeah.
It changed the trajectory of my entire
And
life.
it was one choice.
Yep.
It
I
was
had to
one
show up.
invitation.
I had to show up though, you know. I could have said, "Nah, I got stuff to do.
Yeah.
I want to go to the beach and lay out or go surfing or whatever, be a beach bum." But I was like, "Okay, I'm going to show up." And I showed up and I kept showing up and kept showing up and coming every Saturday and like just meeting these great people. And now I'm still friends with all these people. And now Nourish LA has adopted the Good Karma Gardens initiative as well.
I saw.
So it just feels really good. But through that, through gardening, through the juice bar, I was able to go work on various farms. I worked on a cannabis farms. I met the Grateful Dead community. I got flown out to NorCal to go trim on a big weed farm. And the pianist from the Grateful Dead was in the piano on a grand piano playing music for us while I'm trimming
my
weed. And I'm like,
gosh.
what is happening? What is my life right now? I was like, okay, yes, thank you, more please. Like,
Yeah.
this is cool.
This is nothing you can plan
I was
ever.
18 years old. Like,
Yeah.
can you
Oh my
imagine?
gosh.
Like,
Yeah.
all of a sudden you're like, this is shit that like is out of a movie.
Yeah,
You know what
yeah.
I mean? So I got into the Grateful Dead scene. I got invited to lots of concerts and shows and hopped on that bus, which was really great. Smoked a lot of really good weed. But then I was like, how do I grow this stuff? What is its desire? But now I'm in the garden. So now I'm like way more curious than ever. And this is my new medium. I was like, I want to learn how to grow this. I want to be a female that grows this. Because all the farmers I was seeing were all male. They were all, it's a very male dominated
Interesting.
industry, the cannabis industry.
That is not something you think about ever.
It's mostly male dominated. So I was like, I was determined. I was like, I'm going to be a female cannabis grower. I'm going to learn about this. I'm going to make it.
Yeah.
I'm going to make it proper. I'm going to grow it. I'm going to learn how to make this plant, how to grow it and lovingly with vibrations, you know? And it took me on a good ride. I met my first boyfriend who ended up being an organic chemist who taught me how to grow really
wow.
good cannabis and all kinds of other medicinal herbs. And that was fun. We stewarded chickens for a little while and
Where was
in
that?
San Diego.
I just want to say that
lived
doesn't
in
work in
OB
Venice anymore.
I lived in OB for 3 years. We met at the coffee shop that I was serving coffee at. He came to my coffee shop. I actually prayed for him and then he showed up. The thing I prayed for was like someone that was really nice hands, that was really smart, that was a surfer. And the next day after I prayed, I see somebody picking up a coffee cup and I look up and I'm like, holy shit. Like, is this really happening? And we were like flirting, but he was much older. So I wasn't sure. And I was like young and kind of like clueless also because I'm just learning about my path, you know? But he became a mentor for me. And I'm still friends with the guy. Like, God bless him.
You prayed for good hands.
I prayed for good hands. Oh,
Hands are
I'm weird
important.
like
The
that.
things that are important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hands are
Yeah.
really important
Hands are
to
important.
me.
Can be very,
Yeah.
yeah.
Say a
So
lot about somebody.
yeah, exactly. And I
Mhm.
just remember seeing his hands with a ring on his finger and the way that he held a cup. And anyways, it was just like, I can't believe this is happening.
That makes a lot of sense for
Yeah.
me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I
can't
get that.
believe this is happening.
Yeah.
Are you a big believer? You say praying, but are you a big
Yes.
believer in manifestation?
No, I love
Okay.
God with all my heart. I have a
Okay.
relationship with Jesus Christ. I love Jesus with all my heart. I'm not a manifester. I'm not a witch. I'm not into that world at all, actually. Like, I've always had a relationship with Christ consciousness and God. I've had my own encounters with him personally that are from another world, that nothing has ever come close. And I was a Hare Krishna when I was 15 years old and went to the Hare Krishna temple because the job I worked at the time at high school, the whole Hare Krishna community would come in and cook. So they would buy stuff in bulk. I worked at a Sam's Club and they invited me to the temple. So I was a vegetarian for 10 years, but I've never gotten quite the same love and energy as I have with Christ consciousness. When I stepped into a church and I heard an entire chorus praising Jesus and worshiping God, I just bawled, and nothing ever has been able to move me like that. So when I started like asking God, I was like, hey, like, what's the right thing for what's my path? Like, I know that everybody needs a spiritual backbone. You have to have it. If not, you can get lost in the sauce.
Yeah. You'll be
So
lost at sea.
exactly. So I prayed for it, and it, he definitely came to me and was like, no, like, I'm the real deal. And I've explored all kinds of different things. My mentor was a Buddhist, hardcore Buddhist, but I never felt that. Like, I never felt this presence of the Holy Spirit in that. And I've eaten lots of mushrooms, and I'm native. So like, you would think that I've done peyote, I've sat in lots of ceremonies, but nothing
Yeah.
comes close to Jesus Christ. And I've done it all.
Yeah.
So that was my path. That's I have a relationship with God. I consider myself now a Christian. My family and I have found a church, but I'm also like a proponent of psychedelic mushrooms. I'm also a proponent of medicinal marijuana. So I'm nuanced too, and I'm open-minded, but I definitely, like, Jesus Christ to me has a very special place in my heart. But not, yeah. And I've tried all kinds of different things, I've tried. But there's just, when it's the right thing, when it can just breaks down all your walls, and you're just bone, just bone,
Yeah.
And I've had lots of incredible, epic encounters in my life. But yeah, that's my walk.
So you were 18 at
Yeah.
that point.
No, I was in San Diego. 18 was I was in LA.
Oh, you were back. Okay.
I was in LA, and then I moved with my boyfriend when I was 23 to San Diego for 3 years. We broke up, split our weed, sold all my weed to all my friends who were all weed smokers, and traveled with one of my best friends. We did Central and South America. We did the woofing program.
What's the
'Cause
woofing program?
Woofing is the Worldwide Organics no, something like that. Basically it's a work trade program that you can go all over the world. So you can go to the Netherlands, you can go
wow.
to Sweden, you can go to Hawaii and go work on a farm, and they'll put you up, and you can go submerge yourself in farm world.
Wow.
So we went.
For living and food?
Yeah,
So you
they'll
live
take
there.
care of you.
Mhm.
They'll take care of you, and they put a roof over your head and feed you.
And you work.
You are the labor.
What a great way to see the world.
But not
Yes.
only that, I was curious about, like, how do I become a farmer in LA? How do I do this? I can't just rip people's lawns out forever. I'll break my body. You know what I mean? So I was
And
like,
probably get arrested.
but not only, I was just like, how do you do this in an urban environment?
Yeah.
So I really just wanted to go be of service and learn where our most beloved food comes from, what farmers really do, and become one. So I took off. We traveled. We did Costa Rica, and then we did South America, then we did Ecuador, and I loved. I'm sorry. We did Costa Rica, Ecuador. She went to Chile, and then I went to Peru, and then I loved Ecuador so much I went back to Ecuador. And we just submersed ourselves. It was amazing. We worked for multiple nonprofits. We worked in the northernmost region of Ecuador in this little town called Piro that is on the border of Colombia. And we went and made 5-course meals for seniors whose kids had all gone off to the city and they're left to fend for themselves. And they're really little people because they don't eat their fruits and vegetables because they would rather sell it. So our job was just to make meals with all the vegetables that they grow because they have the highest quality soil in the world, but they weren't eating anything that they grow because they needed to make $1. I know,
So
right?
sad.
So they'd rather sell their broccoli, and it was like the most beautiful broccoli you've ever seen. It was massive, and then eat it. And they
Wow.
would eat just chicken and rice. And so they were there. These scientists came, and they're like, they have all these spinal issues. So all these people are getting shorter, and they're literally curling up. And the scientists discovered that it was just a mineral deficiency that was attributed to their diet. It was just insufficient in certain minerals.
Wow.
That was literally totally available.
It was right there.
Yeah, but they don't want to eat it because they would rather make $1.
Yeah.
You know, that's their livelihood. So our job
That is
was
so
to
sad.
That
I
is so
know,
sad.
I know, right? So
so
our job was to
wrong.
make meals incorporating all the fruits and veggies. So we made like granola, we made soup, like kale soup, kale chips, all these different kinds of foods. And they would come to this mess hall every day to get this meal, and we'd have music for them and games and dancing. And they'd get these amazing meals that they would never be able to cook or make because they didn't know,
Yeah.
you know? So we would make them for them, and it was so fun. And so we worked there for 2 weeks. And then we went and worked on a panela farm, which is organic sugarcane. Sugar in our country is totally devoid of nutrients, but sugar in those countries is like solid molasses. And it has every mineral. Like you don't lose your teeth from sugar over there. It actually builds your teeth enamel. It's crazy. But
And it tastes super good.
oh, totally. It tastes,
Yeah.
it's incredible. So we went to a farm, and then that shared a farm with a coffee farm, a coffee grower. So we got to not only see where the sugar cane is harvested and how it's processed and fermented, but we also got to see how coffee is harvested. And it was wild because that was in Ecuador in the Andes Mountains. And there's literally cows on the hillside, and I had to bathe in like a waterfall every day.
You had to bathe in
I
the
had
waterfall?
to.
That
If I
sounds
wanted to get clean, I'd have to
lovely.
cross.
Oh my
But
god.
I have boots up to my hips because it rains all day. You're in a rainforest cloud.
Yeah.
So I remember being like, okay, I got to go take a bath. And I would just go be with myself in this beautiful waterfall.
This sounds I
It
want to
was
move there.
incredible.
This sounds
Like
amazing.
you don't get any sunshine. So it's also kind of like, oh, this
Oh.
sucks because it's not sunny. It rains all day, like
Yeah.
except like 1 hour of the day for lunch, you know? And there's all these cows and it's just lush. But what it taught me was that farmers are the backbone of all society, and without farmers, we're doomed. And if we don't respect our farmers and help our farmers and speak for our farmers, you'll have a sick society because they feed you. They literally nourish you. So, and then the farmers that I met were like the most humble, hardworking, resourceful, kind people that I've ever met. Salt of the earth humans, you know, like will put you up if they have nothing. We'll feed you. You know, like it's like a no-brainer. It's like just what
Yeah.
you do. And I'm thinking like this is all backwards. Here in America, you're rich if you have money, but over there, you're rich if you have community. And that made more sense to me.
Yeah.
You know, and I was like, how do I bring all these different philosophies I've learned back to California? How do I bring this back? Anyways, when I got back, I was a total culture shock. I was like,
Oh, I bet.
oh my God, I remember being like, I'm hungry. I got to go to Abbott Kinney and get Abbott's Habit. I don't even know what I'm doing right now with what is my life, you
Now I
know?
have to eat pizza.
It was so weird. It was so weird.
Did you go back straight to like Venice to live in Venice?
I stayed in my friend's because she went to Chile and then she went to what are those beautiful waters called that are like protected waters by Chile? Anyway, she went to go explore with her family. So her place was sitting empty. So I stayed in her place and it was off of Abbott Kinney. It's like 4th and Rose, like near that area, you know? And I just remember being like, oh my God, like,
What am
how
I
am I
doing?
going to put all these pieces together and share with the world all the things I've gotten to see and learn, It was just a lot, and I remember going through a phase of depression because it was just so much. It was such intensity, extreme from extreme. I'm like bathing in a waterfall and like working with my hands and the dirt to just like cement and
Mm.
trash and
City noises, city
yes. Oh
smells.
my God. And I
Mhm.
remember, okay, like I need to ground. I need to ground. I took off my shoes and I started walking down Abbot Kinney. That was my meditation. I'm just going to walk. I'm just going to get up in the morning. I'm just going to walk. So I just started walking super early as the sun was rising, walking down Abbot Kinney and like, oh, this feels good. Okay. It didn't even matter. I didn't care about the trash. I didn't care about any of it. I was just like, I'm walking, I'm on earth. And then I started seeing these vacant lots on Abbot Kinney and I was like, there's a bunch of trash and weeds in there. I wonder what would happen if we started cleaning them up. And then I saw one of the gates was open. So I was like, oh, I'm just going to let myself in. I'll weed it. Let me just sit here and weed it. And then I started weeding that whole feeling of remembering that I'm one
Ah.
with the earth and this is my healing. And I started weeding and I was like, oh, this feels so good. And then I started planting and watering.
And nobody came and said,
Nobody
like, "What
came.
the heck are you
Nobody
doing
came.
there?"
Homeless people were leaving their trash there, were stashing their stuff. And I was like, oh, I think the landlord will be stoked if like he sees me
Mhm.
like picking up trash. And I picked up all the trash. I picked up all the broken glass and started weeding it and started stewarding it and just taking care of it. And then I was like, oh, I think this is what I'm gonna do for a little bit. I'm just gonna sit and take care of this little plot of land as I take care of my mind and come back to earth. And that's what I did. And then I formed my first little organization called Sunshine Partnerships. I contacted my friends, all my gardening friends, and I was like, you guys, I have this great idea. Every vacant lot in the city can get turned into a community garden. You got to help me. And like I pulled my friends. I was like, let's have a meeting of the minds, and we came up with the logo. And, I told all my gardener friends, I was like, there's 8,600 vacant lots in the city. Like, even if just 10% of them were community gardens, like that's like this is coming from someone that was dealing with mental health issues. I was like, everybody needs this.
Mhm.
We need this so much. We need this so much.
I was like coming like now the question from the real estate agent,
Yeah.
like right away, like,
Yeah.
who owned these lots?
Well,
And like,
so I
what do
didn't
you,
care about that.
did
I
they not say,
obviously
hey, we want to sell them at some
I
point?
was a
What are you
rebel
doing?
with a cause. I will tell you what happened. Eventually, we took over the lot. We planted it out for a year. I tried communicating with them for over a year. I remember I was working at a juice bar while taking full-time classes at Santa Monica College and working for Kiss the Ground. And then I get a message on my phone saying, hey, we've heard you're with this business and you want to take over our land, blah, 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 blah. The scumbag landlord hired someone to destroy our garden, hung all the sunflowers out to dry like dead people, like
Oh my
so insulting. But this
gosh.
is what's funny. So they were trying to build a parking lot. The permits didn't get approved for the parking lot. And now it's still a vacant lot accumulating trash with a bunch of fig trees.
Karma.
And to this
Kammergarten,
day,
right?
I still drive by. I just drove by 2 days ago and I was
Oh
like,
my gosh.
you know what? So when you encounter those people, you don't have to give them any mind. All you got to do is pull out your wildflower seeds and just fucking chuck them.
Yep.
They'll land somewhere.
That is your revenge,
Yeah.
but we did take it over for a year. It helped us go to the city and talk about new ordinances that got
Mhm.
passed through the city to give incentives for landowners to partner with urban ag so that they can be transformed for like 5-year periods of time. And then they wouldn't have to pay taxes on that land.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
the
okay.
Urban
There's
Ag Incentive
incentive.
Zones Act. So I actually went to the city with a bunch of our urban ag friends, and we went and spoke on behalf of community gardens and people that are needing green space for
Mhm.
mental health.
That still
Mhm.
exists?
Yeah, that still exists.
Good to
But we
know.
Yeah.
can't get landlords to sign because the regulations in California are so difficult that squatters' rights supersede that. So landowners
Oh,
are not don't want to sign over or lease land because squatters' rights are so
Yeah.
prevalent. You know what I mean?
mm.
Even though I
Mhm.
wasn't trying to be a squatter, like I wanted to do things cleanly,
Mhm.
I was trying to make things pretty.
Yeah.
But I don't regret doing that at all. Through doing that, I worked for Kiss the Ground. I came as a volunteer and they were like, you're great at this. Um, can you work this job? And I got to steward a big community garden, a 1/4 acre in Venice. So I worked there for 7 years. And then I went and took classes at Santa Monica college and became a garden manager on campus. And then we started a free farmers market on campus. So I got to learn about different organizations reducing food waste. And then when the pandemic hit, it was like, ding, no brainer. Here I am. My job sent me home to write a gardening manual. And I said, nope, you didn't hire me as a gardening manual. I'm not going to do it. I can't do it. I'm not supposed to be at home just sitting typing away. I was like, I'm a community engagement coordinator. That's what you hired me for. That's my superpower. I'm great at gathering people. I'm great at gathering minds to do things that are efficient and effective in society. That's my gift, is community engagement. So,
And there comes the full circle.
and there comes the full circle
Yeah.
To
moment.
Nourish.
Exactly. In the second week of the pandemic, and the TV's telling you, oh, stay home, do this thing. And I said, nope, I'm not falling for this, because if we're all going to die, and this is where my relationship with Christ is so prevalent, is like, if we're all going to die, you think that Christ, like the God, that your divine creator wants you sitting at home scared? Hell no. Quite the opposite, actually. You have to be rebellious. You have to turn those tables over, and you have to say, no, not on my watch. This isn't going to happen, because there's people that need your gifts. There's people that need your services. So what are you actually willing to die for? And that is a very spiritual question. And in that time, I stayed home. I prayed. I talked to my husband. I said, you know what? God doesn't want us afraid. If we're to be believers in God, we have to emanate his love and his gloriousness. And this isn't how you do it. He doesn't want you to be afraid. I don't want to be afraid. This is not a good thing to teach my kids. This is not how I want to die. I don't want to be stuck here afraid.
Afraid
You know
to
what I mean?
open the door.
Exactly. I can't. And I won't. So that's when I was like, nope, tables are turning. I told my job, I was like, I'm sorry, but I'm not a garden manual writer. I'm a community engagement coordinator. I'm supposed to be out in the world engaging with my community. This isn't for me anymore. Like, I got to do my own thing. Bye. I talked to my husband, and he's like, okay, honey, like, what are you going to do? I was like, we're going to get all the food from Whole Foods over there, and we're going to redirect it to people that need it. Because at that time, all the forums online were just like, help, we need food. My husband was laid off. I lost my job. We're on our last $100. My mom's living with us. My kids are home. How is everyone getting by? And it was just post after post after post after post
I
on
wish
the
I
LA Moms
had
group.
you then.
LA Moms group. 70,000 parents, and just forums of people needing help with the basic necessities.
That was me.
And that
I
was
needed
food.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People were like, what do we do?
Yeah.
If you're living paycheck to paycheck, who's gonna? And then we're expecting all these like delivery drivers to go and fetch our food for us. I'm like, this is insane. So, I mean, I see the blessing in it now, but before I was just like upset, because I thought, for sure, maybe these stores and restaurants are redirecting their food.
You would think.
You would think.
Yeah.
No, because they're being told that they just have to shut down. They have to shut down, and only the basic needs, and the first responders, and the grocery stores, and you got to stand in line at 6 feet distance, da 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 da. And I'm like, okay, let me go call Whole Foods and see what they're doing with their stuff at the end of the day. And sure enough, I lifted up their trash lid, and it's just like loaded with food. I'm like, what's wrong with this brioche bread? What's wrong with this apple? Like, can somebody tell me what the fuck is going on here?
Yeah.
Can somebody tell me?
Like, why are you throwing away this perfectly good
I was
food?
infuriated. I was
Yeah.
like, this is crazy. Like, all
Yeah.
you motherfuckers. Like, I was so angry. And then I was like, okay, Natalie, like, you need to channel your rage. You have to channel this anger. And I remember being like, okay, it's going to be okay. And I went back to the garden. I started bringing my compost to the garden just to get fresh air and just like get a sense of normalcy. And my coworker had stumbled on a neighbor who had volunteered for another organization that recovers food called Food Cycle. So she's like, I got their number for you because I know you're curious and doing your own thing. I called them up. I was like, hey, I have a plan. They're like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm going to give out groceries out of the alleyway of my apartment building, and I need everything and anything. Like, how do I get it? They're like, oh, you need to partner with a local nonprofit that feeds people. I was like a church? Easy. I was like, okay, give me the next obstacle. Like, let's go. I'm going to move forward. So everything that they told me I had to do, I just did it in moments. Notice, texting people, messaging people. I need all these things. Buy Nothing group. I need coolers, rubber bands, paper bags. If you're sitting on excess fruit in your trees, I need it all. Bring it to me. And because people were also feeling a sense of hopelessness, they wanted to feel purposeful. And I could feel that, you know? I was posting every day for things I needed, and people were just dropping it off, like,
Oh, I had all the hundreds and hundreds of Trader Joe's
yeah,
bags that I
exactly.
have at home every time I go shopping and forget my own
Yes,
bags. And like I
exactly.
brought them every
Yep.
Sunday. And like,
Yep.
yeah, everybody
Egg
brought a little bit.
cartons. I realized we needed all these different things, and I'm like, I don't need to buy any of this.
But
And it's
how
all
does it
there.
work when you like, do you just very stupidly ask, do you go to Trader Joe's and said, hey, I want your leftover
Yep,
food? And they
yep.
just say yes?
I called the Whole Foods because I was living on Barrington and National. I called the Whole Foods. I said, "What are you guys doing at the end of the day during the
Mm-hmm.
pandemic? Like for your food that you're just tossing off your shelf, or if you
Yeah.
get too much food, or if you get a large surplus, they're like, we're throwing it away." I was like, "What?" And it's funny because I studied waste management at Santa Monica College. I took all the CRM courses. This is the California Recovery and Resource Association came and did like they still have these ongoing classes at Santa Monica College, and it's a certification course where you go and audit grocery stores and you learn about the waste stream and you learn about different laws that are coming into effect to change this narrative because it's a huge problem in big cities like California. It's like our waste stream. It's
Weren't
Mm-hmm.
they supposed to throw them away for like health reasons for a while? Or
AB 1383 says any business that creates over 1 cubic foot of waste has to divert into green waste or have partner recovery partners. But at that time, there was no education around it. So a lot of
yeah.
businesses didn't even know who's the people that are
Oh.
supposed to recover it. Well, now I was the people that is going to
Yeah.
recover it. Me and Food Forward and Food Cycle and all these different churches, like we started networking and saying, hey, like something has to be done. We have all these hungry neighbors,
Mm-hmm.
and a bunch of churches were like, our congregation, our parish is like asking for help from the church for food. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, because where else are they supposed to go?
Right.
You know what I mean? And I was like, we have to be those people. We have to be the people that are neighbors. We have
Mm-hmm.
to do this work. It's really important. But now, we're 5 years in. We feed over 1,000 people every single weekend. We've developed an app to recover food.
1,000?
Yeah, minimum.
It's crazy. Like
Where
when
is
I
this
started
out
We
the
of?
partnered with
amount,
UCLA Student Housing. We were originally out of the Wood Cafe. I posted on social media when we needed it, when we outgrew my garage out of the alleyway. And I was like, who has a business they're just sitting on in refrigeration? And
Yeah.
my old coffee shop boss, someone tagged him, and I had his number as D Boss Man in my phone still from working as a barista for him at the Venice Grind. I was like, hey, boss man, like, what are you doing with your restaurant? He had laid off 70 of his employees. He has got 4 restaurants. He's just sitting on fallow real estate.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I was
Yeah.
like, well, I'm feeding people out of the alleyway. Do you want to partner up so that we can feed more people? And
Yeah.
he's like, yeah, it's really the only thing that makes sense. As a
Mhm.
restaurant owner, how helpless would you feel? You go
Mhm.
from like feeding people and like engaging with
You
your
have the
community.
refrigerators. You
And he
have
and he was
everything.
sitting on mountains of meat and eggs, and he had a breakfast spot. So it's like, it was a
and the
kind of
big parking lot that was used
exactly
for the cars to drive in, and we had our tables set up where we
in our
made like
pop-ups. So our whole
the food
infrastructure
line.
fit on the lot, and it had this
Wow.
beautiful painting by Mir One, and it was about like the non-GMO. It was like the big ugly face, and then people like in a line like cattle, and then the farmers, like the people living a sovereign life on one side with the sunshine and all these plants and bees and their children, and they're
That
like
was
free.
perfect
Yeah,
for
it was
that.
it was like a straight out
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
it's magical.
And so you were filling bags of groceries for people, or
Yep.
you were preparing meals?
No, we were filling bags of groceries. So we were making everything, fruits, vegetables, onions, potatoes, garlic, bell peppers, strawberries, apples, oranges. And we were getting such large quantities from all these different places. Once we had the infrastructure to hold it,
Yeah.
we were going out to farms in Oxnard and picking stuff because a bunch of people got laid off in the fields too because there was no buyers for the
Yeah.
avocados. There was no buyers for the lemons and the oranges.
Yeah, the restaurants were closed and
That's
everything.
right.
So like
So all
they
these
didn't.
farmers are sitting on with acres and acres of trees. So our group of volunteers were going out there with trucks and vans and fruit pickers, and we were doing the picking and coming back. 'Cause there was no traffic.
Oh my
Oh
God.
There
yeah,
was
I
all this
remember that.
abundance of food, and it was
Yeah.
literally everywhere. And you're just like, you have one job, people. It's just feed people.
Yeah.
But like once the machine stops and the money stops, people are like, what do I do?
Mhm.
What do I do?
Yeah.
And I'm like, just feed people. That's all you got to do.
So You're still feeding 1,000
Yep,
people a
we're still
weekend.
feeding people. We also gave out seedlings every Friday to encourage people to grow their own food.
Yeah.
And some of that food would get grown in local community plots or backyards, and they were having such prolific times with their vegetables, so they were bringing back excess produce for our food line.
Mm.
And yeah, it was super fun. We're still giving out seedlings. We're still feeding people. We're still reducing food waste. The
Mhm.
thing is, like, the food's there. There's enough food to feed everybody.
There is.
There's enough food to feed every human on earth, and not shit.
Yeah.
Really
Mm.
nice,
Good
beautiful
food.
food, healthy, nutritious food. It's everywhere. It's in
Mhm.
backyard trees. It's in restaurants. It's in grocery stores. It's on farms. It's everywhere. All we have to do is, like, answer the call and get to know people, knock on people's doors and say, hey, share a lemon. Like, don't be afraid to engage.
Sarah steals my lemons all the time.
Good.
Always walk in her backyard and get some
Exactly.
lemons when I
Yes,
need
you need
lemons.
them. And not one household cannot possibly eat a whole tree of lemons. It's impossible.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's meant to be shared. So we're still feeding people. We provide groceries. We provide food for over 1,000 people every single week. We started an app that we that engages with local restaurants and bakeries and artisan markets like Juice to Grocer, and we get their waste every single day. At the end of the day, 7 days a week, and that goes to all different partners all over the city. And then we also build gardens, our Good Karma gardens, once a month.
So if people want to volunteer or get involved, it sounds like there are multiple ways, but what's the best way?
You just go online, nourish.la, click on the little volunteer, sign up to volunteer. You'll get a text message on your phone to pick your shift.
Yeah.
And it's really easy.
And if people are in need for food, where do they go?
Come and find food. We partnered up with St. Mark's Church. They operate every Saturday from 11 to 1. So you can get groceries there. No questions asked. You just stand there's either a walk-up line or a car line. You can do either one. And then on Sundays, we're at UCLA Student Housing. We have a 10 by 20 shipping container, and our whole setup is in the parking lot at Student Housing. And there's a big line of people waiting for food. So you have to get in the line, or you can come volunteer, because all of our volunteers also get groceries.
I always brought home bags for the whole building.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
during the pandemic, I
Yep.
gave like bags to everybody
Yep.
every Sunday. Oh my God, Sarah's back again with
Yep.
the amazing bread.
Yep. We get so much
my
bread. We
God,
recover
the
over 1,000
most-
pounds of bread a
yeah.
week.
The most
Wow.
beautiful bread.
Bakeries have a lot of waste.
fresh vegetables.
Sourdough.
And
Yeah, because they
everything.
can't sell it if it's like 2 days, 3 days
No,
old.
because it's artisan. It's supposed to be fresh and soft and hot. But what about French toast? What about all these other
Yeah.
things you can make?
Bread pudding.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, we're just we're keeping on. I'm really excited that we adopted the Good Karma Gardens. That was really important when we reestablished our mission. And I was like, how do we make this full circle? It's one thing to give people a bag of food. It's a whole nother thing to teach them the importance of how to grow your own food.
Yeah.
To teach them the lessons of the earth, the lessons that I learned, the healing, the community, the education, the stewardship, the responsibility. And I really wanted to make sure that that was part of our ethos, is not just, here you go, here's food, have a nice life. But it's like, no, I want a deeper connection with you. And I want you to have a deeper connection with the land that stewards you, And I want your kids to come, and I want your grandparents to come. And the community gardens, the Good Karma Gardens really foster that aspect, which is really, really important. Yeah.
We did something 2 weeks ago with my husband's swim team. He's a swimming coach.
Cool.
And we did something like that too on a Sunday. His whole team came to volunteer. I forgot the name of the organization, but we got stuff from Trader Joe's and things. I'm saying, oh, that looks so familiar. The same
Yeah.
boxes
Yeah.
with like all the mixed things in it. But they cook
Mm-hmm.
in a church
Yep.
too. In a church they cook, and the people can come there and have a
Hot
warm meal.
Nice.
So we were just there, and I brought my daughter for the
Nice.
first time, and we were just there. We were cutting zucchinis, and one table was cutting onions and stuff. And she loved doing that so much.
Yep.
We're just like, she's like, Mom, this is so fun and this is so good.
It's so
Yeah.
And
fulfilling
people
for the
who don't
children.
have food get food now.
Yeah.
Like in a 10-year-old mind, it's not. She never had food insecurity, so
Totally.
she doesn't know that people
Yeah.
don't get enough food. Like that's
Or
just
even
not
like
on-
a hot meal, like something
Yeah.
nourishing,
Yeah. something with
Made
like
by
good
hand.
vegetables in
Yeah.
it and not just like
Not
shitty
just
preservatives and
yeah.
whatever.
Gas station.
So I encourage everybody to like introduce the kids to these things, and like whenever you feel bad, giving something to somebody else
Service.
is just be selfish and
That's
do
the
it for a
key.
selfish reason to feel better, like
That's the
whatever.
key.
But it makes you feel so, as I said, like this Sunday was the best day of my week.
Yeah.
Just it made just sense, you know.
Yep.
Everything you did
Yep.
made sense.
Yep.
Like giving food to people that would otherwise land in the landfill in the trash to somebody who doesn't have enough. It's just like this is this makes sense.
Yeah, it's easy to get behind.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
I think that's what's great about food. It's such an easy bringer of community. It's such an easy way to network. It's such an easy way to get to because
Mhm.
we all have it's part of our humanity. So it's like even if we don't agree in all the things, we agree that you like to eat well and you like to eat well and I like to eat well
Mhm.
and we like to celebrate around a meal, you know? So it's like it's just a great unifier. It's one of the easiest. That
Yeah.
and music
Oh yeah.
and art.
So what's the next step? What's your dream? What's your wish?
Oh my goodness. Well, there's still a lot of work to do around food recovery. We have the Olympics coming up, so we're starting conversations around waste. I know France did a really great job by eliminating all food waste from the Olympics.
Did they?
They did.
Wow.
100%. So that's awesome because it leaves us with space to get competitive and say, you know what, we need to do that too. We have a
Yeah.
lot of people in this city and that food can go to soup kitchens. That food, you know, it needs to get out to people that can utilize it and eat it. So I think right now it's really having conversations with all the different food recovery organizations and saying, how are we going to catch this? How are we all going to work together? How are we going to effectively communicate and be able to divvy the responsibility? And I think a lot of it is also just educating the public, the general public, and being like,
Yeah.
hey, we all like, it's not just the responsibility of these certain orgs, it's the responsibility of all of us as citizens, as
Mhm.
people on this planet to think about this stuff and to teach it to our children and younger generations. I think different schools are coming up with various plans. More and more schools are coming up with community gardens and into their curriculum because parents really want their kids to know about that world. I think we've come full circle. We're on a tipping point now and we're seeing a lot of issues, health issues, and
Yeah.
it's really helping us see our shit.
Mhm.
And the downside of that is like it hurts a lot of animals and people and ourselves. The upside of it is hopefully we can see it and get to work,
Yeah.
create jobs, create education, create awareness, and also like work with bigger leaders and say, hey, like we need to have a system for these, a process for these things. Like this is a big deal. 40% of the food that gets grown doesn't even make it to people's tables.
because it's not pretty enough.
Exactly. It's not sellable. But now you have all these innovators, misfit markets and place like that popping up because they found that they could sell it for even cheaper for, to people that want to consume it because they see nothing wrong with it. So it's like
Yeah.
we need innovation like that all the time. And it's like, unfortunately, you kind of have to hit people in their pocketbook. You have to hit them in their pocketbook. You really do. And if it means like, there's so many different ways to go about it, carrying your utensils, your water bottle, your coffee cup, all the different things, but we have a shared responsibility. We really do. So it's just doing lots of speaking engagements, working, collaborating, innovating, creating more jobs. I like the potential of jobs, and just because I see a lot of young people feel like they don't know what to do, but when
Mhm.
you invite them into this world, their eyes are open because they see that they can be part of a solution. It doesn't have to be doom and gloom. It can be like bright.
That's so important.
Yeah, we
for
need
this generation.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not, when we hire people, I'm not looking for like degrees. I'm looking for enthusiasm. I'm looking for people willing to learn. I'm looking for people that are problem solvers and innovators and thinkers and strategists.
Mhm.
So like, I don't though I love your college degrees, I'm not necessarily looking for that. I'm looking
Yeah.
for doers, people that aren't afraid to like talk to neighbors, aren't afraid to go to the restaurant and say, hey, what are you doing with your waste? Aren't afraid to like be a little bit of a disruptor, because you have to have that if you're going to change things.
Yeah.
So you got to have a little rebellious backbone.
So one of the biggest things we need to really fix is the gap between the waste and the hungry that you're doing in your community in first a small way bigger way, but like how do we do this like globally?
Well, I think it starts neighbor to neighbor. We have to create an ethos. We have to create a sense of responsibility and a sense of pride and caretaking.
I think we have to change our whole mentality
Totally.
as a society.
Yeah. We can't just be all like go, 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 go and like not acknowledge that like somebody's going hungry next to us. Like that doesn't work. That doesn't work. You deprive someone of their humanity, basic needs.
Yeah.
Food, water, shelter.
And the perspective too is like we're only here for
limited
60, 80,
Yeah.
maybe 100 years. We're all just passing by.
Totally.
And
I could easily be that person, that hungry person on the side of the highway.
Yeah.
I mean, I just found out that someone I knew from the coffee shop is currently homeless, and he was in the film industry. And I saw his Facebook post, and it was like, don't know how I got here. And I'm like, oh my God.
Nobody knows how they get
No,
there.
he literally had no idea how he got here. Probably he just solitude, all the different things, you know what I mean? That's like why we need each other. We're living in such close quarters with people. We might as well get to know each other.
Yeah.
You don't got to like be best friends with everybody, but you're going to have to figure it out.
Yeah.
Or else why live here? We live in this amazing, magical city, and it's a gift. It's such a gift. But yeah, you're right. Changing our mindset and the way that we've done things. I think breaking bread is also just an easy way. Potluck dinners with neighbors and strangers.
I love that because it's full circle.
with
Yeah,
our
we do
mommies.
that.
Yeah,
in our
we do that
building.
too.
It's wild. We lived next to each other for so long, but we were all in our little bubbles.
Totally.
In our own lives.
It's easy to do.
And now we have this great community and we all hang out together.
Yep. Drink
block
wine.
parties.
Yep. We
Shoot the
barbecue
shit.
together.
I love it. That's what it's all about.
But I love for you, it's all come full circle. 'Cause
oh my gosh.
you talked about your childhood and your house being like the house with the pool
Yep.
and everyone would come over
Yep.
and you would.
It was.
And now you're kind of bringing that feeling to others.
Well, I realize that it's not just your household, it's your whole motive. It's your whole life, right? It's like, hey, I know we just did a podcast together or like, but let's break bread. Like, let's like actually hang out outside of this, setting and like go get coffee. I want to know about you. I want our daughters to meet like, and it's actually just making that effort and saying, hey, what can come of this?
Yeah.
It's, infinite possibility. But if we don't like try, we'll never know. And it's so fun. I'm all about it.
We should go volunteer. I should show you.
Yeah, with the girls.
Come to site, come
Yeah.
to the garden. We have a big garden party on the 16th in Blair Hills. So a big community came together. They all live in an apartment complex and it's all grass. It's all grass. And they came to us and they actually had a meeting of the minds with every tenant that came out and said, hey, like, do you guys want to remove this grass and grow food? And they all agreed to rip out the grass and grow food. And that was the first time that they actually all got to meet each other.
Wow.
Yep. And then they all came
Wow.
out on Saturday and we had 70 volunteers come out ripping out their front lawn. We had food donated. It was a party.
Yeah.
Live music. Like it was a party. But it's such a big plot that this is our third party at their space because it's that massive.
Wow.
But we had a drone taking video of every single complex there. It's grass, 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 garden.
Yeah.
And the neighbors were walking
Aw.
by and they're like, this is awesome.
It is
So just
awesome.
showing people that you can inspire people whether you take out your parkway or you rip out your lawn,
Mhm.
there is infinite possibilities.
And there's
Mhm.
always like, again, everybody can do something. It's never this like, oh yeah, I'm just this one person.
Yes,
What can I do?
don't ever
Don't-
fall for that.
Yeah, don't ever go there.
No, don't
Like,
go there. You
yeah.
are a gift. You are a miracle embodied. Go share your gifts. Go share them, whatever it is, if it's art or singing or music or community engagement or doing a podcast, go share that. until you die.
Aw.
Share it because the world needs it. It's your art, it's your craft. You have to share it. What good does it do anybody if it's all kept in within for yourself? Doesn't
That's why we wanted to share yours.
I really
'Cause
appreciate
everybody
it.
needs to know the story.
That's such a good message.
Yeah. It's been really fun. And I love problem solving.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love
You're like, that
problem
doesn't work?
solving.
No,
Yep,
that's
let's
not the
pivot.
answer. Let's find a
Totally.
way.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. But where there's a will, there is a way.
Mm-hmm.
And we just need to be willing to like say, hey, this isn't working anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like the way that this is going. And now we have, the fires. It's like, what are we going to do?
Mm-hmm.
What are we going to do? This is an incredible, but I look at it as a rebirth in a way.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like this is a time where we can actually foster nature the way that it's intended to be fostered. We are out of balance.
Mm-hmm.
And if we are wise, we will listen,
Yeah.
we will listen. We need to be doing controlled burns. We need to get all the invasive species out. There's education and learning to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to take a lot of us having to learn something new. And we can't just like rebuild and do things the way that we've done.
Right. Clearly didn't work before.
No. We need controlled burns and we need proper stewardship of these incredible spaces.
Mm-hmm.
Nature's alive.
Yeah.
Fire is
Oh,
alive and
and
it's a
powerful.
tool. It's a
It's
tool.
powerful.
Yeah. Yep.
So if anybody wants to find something, we have it all under our video
Yep.
or under the audio, wherever people are listening or watching or whatever. We have your website and your Instagram.
Cool.
People can contact you.
Cool.
Anything you want to say at the end
Mm.
as a final statement?
Sure. Ready?
Mm.
Don't waste your hate. Rather gather and create. Be of service. Be a sensible person. Use your words and don't be nervous. You can do this. You've got purpose. Find your medicine and use it.
Oh,
That was the loveliest thing ever.
Love it.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks, you guys. That was awesome.